morning, everyone. Welcome to another Lighting the Candle, a World That Works conversation. Really a pleasure to have you here. Each week we kind of delve into different types of ideas in terms of what it takes to shift what goes on out in the world today to a conversation where people are empowered. And instead of operating from a feeling of mistrust or fear or something of that nature, where they can actually go out and work on the things in their lives that they want to, that energize them and give them a sense of joy, self-expression, and all that other cool stuff when your life is working. So with that said, I'd like to take a moment or two to introduce all of our panel. And again, I'm Bill Correll, and I am the certified crackpot that started all this up and got these nice people to give up their time every week to chat. And today what I'd like to do is, while we're going around with the introductions, if you will, can you just take a minute or two and talk about how important language is in terms of our communication? And I'll leave it open-ended with that. But first, let's introduce my dear friend, Mr. Ken Caputo.
Hi there. So I am Ken Caputo. I'm the founder of Quester's Way, and which is a super cool, awesome place that everybody loved. So as far as language, I think language is essential to determining the way we view the world and the way we interact with each other. So it's both external and internal. Just give you a quick example. In our center, we never referred to anyone, our team members. No one was a customer or a client. They were guests. They were coming into what we saw as our home, and they needed to be treated that way. And, just that simple shift made a huge difference in just the whole way we perceived our relationship with the people who we were serving. So, and, it's always incredibly interesting self-language, how people talk about themselves and to themselves, and the power that can have to influence things in a positive or negative direction. So, yeah.
Great. Lisa?
Hello, Lisa Shan, media. I've been in media behind the scenes for decades, and branched out to entrepreneurship to co-publish a conscious living magazine called Epic, empowering people, inspiring community. And for language, being a lover of words, a logophile, I know how important it is. What's the best way for us to communicate? Most of the times it's the only way we can communicate. But I also know that we place our own meaning on each word, so that it's important to realize where the other person is coming from, and how it could impact other people. I just watching an interview with, and I can't remember her name. I think it's Missy. She's a prima ballerina. She's African American, and how to be inclusive of people. For instance, their teachers in the major ballet companies are called masters. So they decided that they should change that language in order to make it more accessible and inviting and inclusive of all people. So it's very important to know where the other people are coming and how it can affect people.
Interesting. Shelley?
Good morning, Shelley Kohler. I'm a small business development coach, advisor, consultant. I stand for, small businesses and the way in which they need resources and help to make them successful. As well as in anything, a coach, I stand for all the tools that anybody would need to guide them and help them do what they need to do, which is really an interesting question, Bill, that you bring up, around language, because there's many different forms and there's many different interpretations. So I think language is really a universal way of expressing, communicating. Nonverbal, verbal, motion, facial expressions, it's all inflections, it's all in how it's delivered as well as received. So I, however something I say or what I do, anything in that manner and how it lands on the over there in the world or to another person is considered obviously language, but there's also a responsibility behind all that too. So it's a very very personal and intimate, but yet again universal and widely used in many different ways. And I think that's where we as humans have to really understand that there's no one way in communication, and perception is all on us to make sure we understand what is being said and how. That's kind of where I go with language.
Interesting. Very cool. Thank you all. I'm looking at it myself today, and I'm actually kind of sitting in the middle of thoughts about how mastery of language as a tool, mastery of building a culture over time by using language and appealing to people at a very, what I call, visceral level, and the choice of words and the choice of topics of conversation, and the conversations that can be had and the conversations that can't be had, and the conversations that are yet unknown. So when I'm thinking about language, and I want to presence Vanessa because we spent about 20 minutes on the phone. She has a work-related emergency that she's working on today, and we miss her. And I told her that we would miss her, and she said, "There you go, guilting me." And I said, "Well, actually, I want you to know that you make a difference. I want you to know that whatever conversation we have today will be completely different than any other conversation we would have had if you were there." That's neither, that's not me sending you anything other than you're important to this process and you're a team member, and that we really enjoy having you around because you make a difference, and that's what our conversations are about. So then she's recommended, she's got a list that she's going to be sending us of new topics, and we started to talk about it. And she said, "Well, what are you doing today?" And I said, "Well, I want to talk about how our culture is being shaped, how our culture," and these are the people that are listening to media, going to school, reading books, what's present and not present in all of that information, and what people have to go and look for, and what they're being told that they will find once they look for it so you don't have to look. All those things that in order to keep people doing in volumes to the masses what you want them to do, shaping their language, teaching them a language that changes their culture, and the words have color. And I'm thinking, when we're talking about empowering language, words that would come to mind right off the bat would be love, trust, honesty, safety, companionship, partner, intimacy. All of those kinds of words lend shape to a particular type of conversation, yes? Mm-hmm. And then on the other side, the words that are more darkness or evil related would be the words of hate, all the ism words that we talked about, which identify a character flaw in a group of human beings that folks have never met. But by calling them and objectifying them with a word, it takes away their humanness. It makes them not a person, but a thing. And thingifying is the first step towards getting someone to believe that there's a difference in terms of equality, I say. So while we're talking about that, what are some other words of darkness that you could think of? Words that you wouldn't necessarily hear coming out of your own mouth. Ken?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'm not real big on good and evil and darkness and light. They're just all, I don't know. I mean, in a sense, they all kind of are necessary, and it's more, I think in terms of things being skillfully or less skillfully like presented, you know. So
Can I shift the topic for you and maybe give a little bit of clarification?
yeah.
The root word here is empowerment. So it's empowering or it ain't. It's
Okay.
right? You can't be a little bit pregnant. You either is or you isn't.
Right.
Empowerment is the same thing. Light is the same thing. It's either there or it's not there. So if I distracted you by saying a few words at the beginning, I apologize for that. I'd like to hear the words that you think that will invite people to feel disempowered, if you can do that.
I think any sequence of words that fixes them in place, that doesn't allow for evolution and movement. Yeah. So you're stupid. That was a big one. Carol Dweck, in her book Growth Mindset, she talks about a boy, in and out of juvie, 14 years old, and their whole thing was teaching them. The only thing they do is teach them the belief in their ability to develop new skills. That was it. And this boy stood up in class, started crying, and just said, "You mean to tell me I don't have to be stupid anymore?" Mm-hmm. He had been told generationally, you're in this environment, you're stupid, you're never going to be more, you're going to have to be a member of a gang or a drug dealer, and that was it. So it was just language that held him in place. That was, that's what did the damage. So, and, so you can think of a string of words, but there, for him, it was that. For someone else, it could be loser. For someone else, Colin McEnroe, the tennis player, is that his name? I know it was McEnroe. He was taught the exact opposite.
John McEnroe.
John
McEnroe. Yeah. He was told from a very young age, you are a world-class tennis player. And that's why he was the way he was. It broke him. There was no room for him to be anything less than a champion from when he was very young. He talks about this a lot. So what some people would see as positive language was not positive language for him. It was very detrimental to, his ability to function as a balanced human. So I don't know how good an answer that is, but that's kind of the best I got. Maybe you guys be able to help me out.
Just a little bit of feedback. Not only did you presence the disempowering side of it, which is to teach somebody that they are a thing and that thing is stupid, and then to release them from bondage of that perception of themselves as a thing, to find out that they can learn new things, and that's not based on being stupid or not. It's just based on being who they are.
Yeah.
Both the empowerment and disempowerment, there's like a yin and the yang, front of the hand, back of the hand kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. So neither one is good or bad. They are tools in a necessary need for people who are a small group of folks to manage the perceptions and the habits of large groups of people.
Yeah. Can I interrupt this? You just struck me as you were saying that. My grandfather he was an amazing man. He was an immigrant from Italy. He came into the United States in the 30s and sponsored many, many people into this country. And I learned a tremendous lot about being a good human from him. And I remember as a teenager being very upset with all of the bad things that happen in the world, and the bad things that people do. And he just said to me, he said, if there wasn't all the bad, we wouldn't appreciate all the good. And, and it was just very simply just spoke to the contrast and the reference base we need to understand, when we're faced with love, yes, we can feel it, but we really, really understand that that's something we want to advocate and fight for when we've experienced hate or witnessed hate, so that's the yin and yang of it. They both exist. Now it's just, where's your attention going to be? So sorry, it's just made me think of my grandfather.
Who's next?
I can kind of bounce off of that. Absolutely, Ken sparked something, and then you put the benchmark as empowerment. So a lot of times language, or what we hear, is then our own interpretation, which then turns into a lot of self-talk, which is as well a language inside of our own selves. Like even though that child heard, "You're stupid, you're never going to be something else," that then resonated with him to believe that, right?
Yep.
Instead of saying, "I'm not stupid." So the the empowerment to have or allow or open for people that they have their own mindset. It's not someone else's, and it's not what they're saying to them. It's what you say to yourself and what you believe and what you can break through. So there's several different lines coming in and out. And, as a child, it's hard to navigate that when you are being told things. As an adult, we have our own mindset, but some of that, as John McEnroe, there was going to be nothing else other than, a world-class tennis champion, because that's just what his brain was telling him. That's what everybody had told him that he was going to be. So there's just different, I think, lines that come in that we can take. We can take this way, we can take that way, as long as we know that there are other options. But I really wanted to tap into the self-talk and mindset, because I think that's a rooted place. No matter what is going on and what conversations are going on around us, if we come back to that and we know our stable, our center, and where we want to go, that we can change the conversation out in the world.
Shelley, can I speak off of that? Because it just really struck
Absolutely.
me as you were saying that years, 3 decades of working with teenagers, and a lot of them would come in saying things like, I'm a loser. And, and it was an interpretation that had been kind of passed down to them, whether it was through friends or family. And what was interesting is there was a lot of resistance to changing that until they had an advocate that they trusted. So, and I'm thinking of one young woman who's, actually she's married and has a child and doing amazing now. And her teenage years were really rough. And it took a long time to, help her understand that she didn't have to speak about herself that way. And if you just said, no, you're not, she just dismissed that out of hand. So you're right. It's like, it took a while, and she needed someone who she believed and respected enough to let that other way of thinking in. And that's when the shifts happened, but it happened over years. So it's just an interesting thing as you're saying that. I agree.
So what's really kind of cool about all of this is that language is in its best form. It activates transformation. What happens is you have a child, that young lady who for years has been told who she is, what she is, and she is a thing. It has mass, it has color, it has taste, odor, all those things. It's identifiable in the world. It's her, and it's not good. So by arguing with her that that's not true, of course she's going to respond, no, it is true. I've got a lot of evidence that it's true. I've been told this all my life. So what you do as a so-called master is you give something else to focus on where a sense of accomplishment stands on its own. It's not going to deny something that she holds as a belief of herself. It's going to give her an opportunity to experience success in her own way, in her own language, until that success or a series of successes allows her to replace the disempowering vision of herself as an object that's unchangeable through time to something that's more flexible and actually works. So what's really kind of coming out in this conversation is that trying to correct something that you think is wrong tends to keep it in place. The more you talk about something as being real, creates that reality. Does that make sense? So if you want to disappear something, a conversation, talk about something else. I mean, that's one of my favorite quotes from one of the best actors, I think, of all time, who basically said, stop referring to me as a black man, and I'll stop referring to you as a white man. Let the games begin. So editorializing from the guy with the big mic. Lisa, I'm really interested.
To piggyback on what both of them said, because I do, we know that from youth we don't have the ability to discern which which words to embrace. And as human species, we tend to go with the negative ones.
Yes.
So the one word that came to mind when you first brought it up was the word never, because it's, it's attached to so many. Well, first of all, it's an absolute and there's no such thing, but you'll never amount to anything. You're never going to go far. You're never going to be good at sports. You're never going to be good at anything, that kind of phrase. But I appreciate what you said, Bill, too, and what Ken was talking about, how to approach people, that it's different to just say, no, you don't have to be that way anymore. It just doesn't fall right for them. And you need proof that something else is out there for them. And I mean, I saw a simple demonstration of that on TV once, a girl that said she couldn't catch a ball. And so the guy just had a conversation with her and was throwing the ball to her, and she forgot that she couldn't catch a ball, kind of thing. And suddenly she could catch the ball. So, and I could see how that could lead to, oh, geez, maybe I was wrong about other things about myself too, kind of thing.
So
to empower somebody to believe in themselves, I think is the best thing that anybody could do we can all do for each other. And I think too that schools or somebody should say, if you've ever heard any of these words, you don't have to believe them. Somewhere somebody should say that at some point to people, and part of maybe a curriculum of some sort.
Actually, we would do a whole empowerment thing. That's a lot of what we did in the school systems, and we just give them a different language that they didn't have any other associations, like the 5 animal leadership and mind step. They identify with being a direct, honest, and nurturing person was being a tiger. The tiger energy, or being a listening, more empathic. That's crane. And they had all of these. Just gave them different solution minds to tap into that circumnavigated all of the noise. And the other thing, Bill, sorry, I'm talking a lot, but this is like a big thing. For having, this, like, the purpose with kids is just giving them the belief so that, that they can be what they need to be in the world, what they're called to be. And environment has a massive impact. And I remember hearing this study about fleas. Put fleas in a jar and you put a lid over them. They'll if they bang their head against the lid of the jar long enough, when you take the lid off, they won't jump any higher. That's just that they've learned the environment, and all it takes is one flea to finally jump out, and then they all jump out. So it's like, it's a hypnosis that can be broken. But like this girl that called herself a loser, it didn't really change until she left home. It was when she changed her environment. It's almost impossible for a smoker to quit smoking if they live in a house with another smoker. They've done all these studies where you're held in place by the socioeconomics of the town you live in. You want to change it, you got to move. So, so there's only so much internally we can do. Our environment has a lot of influence, according to whatever studies are out there. And, so like, you want to lose weight, get rid of all the food that makes you gain weight in your house. Like, you change the environment and it makes it a lot easier to be successful. So.
Oh, that is so true, Ken. I'm just jumping in here as a coach and coaching teenage kids. It was amazing the differential socioeconomic kids that I had. I had some that couldn't even buy their own socks, right? And then you had other families who were buying equipment for the team and spending, giving us money to travel. So there's these disparities. But I tell you what, the one thing they all had in common, and I made sure of, and it, again, when you're here, there's none of that. It does not exist. We're here to play softball. XYZ, here's what we're going to do. Doesn't matter, right? You're all in the same playing field. And rightfully, this girl over here who you thought was poor and couldn't do anything, she's really good. So we've got, so they learned to put themselves on the same level. But going back to what you were saying, it's true. You can take them out of their environment, even just for an hour or two a day, so they can experience something else. That is like a little chip, and it just keeps chipping away. an example, I had a gal who came from a very wealthy family, and her father was a coach for the not football, baseball, one of the big teams. And she wanted to be a baseball player. She was a phenomenal softball player, but not as good as some of the other gals. And she's like, I don't need softball. I don't need baseball. She went on to be an Olympic skeleton. She's been in 3 different Olympics, and she still to this day is now a coach for the younger kids. She was able to kind of break through all of the, I don't need money to make me who I am. I am going to find my own path. Baseball was her life, but she found something else. But it took a lot, because she was just, she was broken, even coming from a very wealthy family. So it allows both sides to really just be on the same level and speak the same language and not have all that other noise going on. And I think it doesn't even matter if it's a team setting or not. It's just a place like what you provide, Ken, a place where everything is a level playing field and there's no judgment and there's nothing else. What we bring to the table is what we bring to the table, but we can then see the different avenues in which we now have the ability to either empower ourselves or hear other people's contributions and go from there and kind of piggyback on that. So I think that is, you hit on a very, very touchy, big piece of how our world is actually evolving, language into that. And then, if you don't, it's kind of like, if you don't like the conversation, you change the conversation. But if you're a child, you don't know a different conversation.
No, you don't. Yeah, you're right. Because your softball field, that basically was a pattern interrupt. You just, all the old patterns just didn't apply. And we noticed it. I mean, years of outreach, and especially with troubled youth, if we went to their, whether it was their classroom, all of the habits and patterns that they had, the feelings of failure and, whatever it was, they all exhibited themselves. But if you took those same kids off site, they were different kids. They were just different kids. It was just such a fascinating thing.
So we're getting to the top of our first half hour. We've done a really good job to start really diving into language, excellent examples of how someone is spoken to or how someone is interrupted in whatever frame of reference that they have, a learned behavior given to them by adults that they have to absolutely trust that they're telling them the truth. They wouldn't lie to us, right? No way. So the whole idea here is to know that that can happen is different than to know that it will happen. And it's different than having an actual technology that allows for it to happen not only repeatedly, duplicatably, within a set amount of time, within a set number of parameters, that it's not only capable, but it's also stable, and it's a process. So I want to kind of leave it there for a minute. And Lisa, you kind of got left out of that round. So if you want to take a minute and just respond and then say your goodbyes until the next segment.
No, I mean, obviously we've talked about words and language before, so we know how important they are. So we were saying, the impact that words can have on people, and that it's possible to reverse what has been done with language as well. So it could lift it and it could put down. So I like how we were talking about empowering people to be their best selves, which in my lifetime I didn't even know that was available till I was well into my adulthood. Because I didn't know there were options. So to start people young would be great to use language to empower.
Terrific. So you're going to stick around for the next segment? Yeah. Okay, great. Ken, would you like to say your goodbyes for this one?
Yeah, I definitely said enough. See you next time. You got me excited with this one.
Kelly?
That was good though.
No, that was good. That was good. Then just keep it real. We'll see you next time.
Excellent. Let's really dive into where does the match come from in terms of lighting the candle, and then the world that works. How is that actually propelled, and how can we make it a microwave process? Thanks for tuning in, everybody at home. Really good to see you. We will be back with another segment of Lighting the Candle, a world that works.
You've been listening to Lighting the Candle, a world that works, part of the Exvadio Podcast Network. You can hear us at exvadio.com/podcasts, Apple Podcasts app, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and wherever you find podcasts.